Metal, one of Earth's natural essentials that make up for most of the Earth, and for most of the things that we have. Hello there. Now, if you thought I was going to make a video about metal minerals, you're wrong. I'm going to be talking about the music genre. Heavy, brutal, gory, no Swedish songwriters, no trap beats, pure, uncut rock. But of course, like with most genres, it had to start somewhere, so let's trace it back to World War II. Well, that was a joke, mostly. There were some pretty fast-paced songs back in those days, though.
I'm over there, send the word,
But let's start off where rock music really started to kick off, starting with the good old classic, rock and roll. It started around the 1950s, and obviously the face of the genre was Elvis Presley. Now, I actually don't really hear his stuff, nor have I ever heard of his stuff. I just hear the song Blue Suede Shoes.
One for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, now go get going, but don't you step on my...
It is a good song. That is when people started to accuse him of stealing most of his songs from the black folk. Anyways, you had a fair few in rock and roll bands, but until the early 1960s is where they start to get really progressive. Meet the Monkees. They're an American band that originated in Los Angeles, started around the mid-1960s, along with other bands that were progressive as well, but they were one of the few bands that were revolutionary, like King Crimson. No, not the JoJo reference, I'm talking about the band. Also, did you know that the author of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hirohiko Araki, was a big fan of rock bands? That's why bands like the Beatles, the Foo Fighters, and Iron Maiden were referenced in the manga. Anyways, come the bands like the Beatles, the Doors, the Carpenters, the B-50s, and you have yourselves a wonderful time back in the good old days of vinyl. Yep, most music were only available in vinyl since technology wasn't so advanced back in the day. Also, radio stations had all the good music anyways, so everybody would just listen to them via radio. Then come the new genres. While new wave isn't really a genre for rock, let alone metal at all, there were other bands that were really starting to make rock more metal-like, more distorted. Bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, well, sort of, and Metallica. So many more bands, but a lot of those bands discovered this thing called distortion, which amps up the guitar's killer metal sound to 100%, using it to its full advantage to make what is classic rock. But as time goes on, began a whole lot of new sub-genres. Now, I don't exactly have enough money to buy an electric guitar, which is weird because I did have enough money to buy an acoustic guitar. Just give me 1 second while I find an acoustic guitar. Here's one. Now, sorry if the camera looks really bright, really shiny. It makes me look like skin more white than I actually am. But I don't know how good this camera is going to pick it up because the guitar's right there and the microphone is all the way over there. But if you just put the strings like this, it's just with the fingers. Usually it's a lot more quieter with the fingers than with a pick. Now, excuse me while I get a pick. Got a pick right here. But this is actually more of the heavier picks, as you can see. Sounds a lot more sharper, right? It gives the guitar a lot more punchier and more, I guess, sharper tone than with your fingers. Here's with the fingers. Fingers give a lot more for soft songs like fingerstyle picking songs, while picks can work for acoustic and electric guitars for more punchier, even metal songs as well. And you can even work on chords, but it's not going to work as much with the fingers, but it still works. While this guitar is mainly for classical music, I do have something that could work for metal music, and that is, there you go. This is an electric bass, which is very much for rock music. Of course, you can also play the bass with your fingers. That's honestly kind of the preferred way. With also picking with your fingers, there's also another technique that you can use with mainly with your thumb or your index finger, whichever one you choose. And that is called slap. Now what exactly slap is that you just basically just slap the string. And it makes that sort of sound that a lot of people really like. It's really used often in jazz, some metal bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, and so on and so forth. You can pretty much slap the fret or all the way down here. But you can also use your fingers to slap the other strings. And just like that, you got yourself a slappy tune. In the 80s alone, we have punk rock, heavy metal, pop rock, heavy metal, hair metal, and death metal. Those genres were to people who listened to the bands that I mentioned earlier, but to some, including myself, it wasn't just heavy enough. And granted, those genres all did very well. Actually, there are many bands that are super famous in each category. Listing off some of the bands in the 80s, we have Death, which you might have guessed is a death metal band that started in the mid-80s and really had a versatile sound to their time. Strange with how simple death metal sounded, Death really was the exception. Then there is Guns N' Roses. A hair metal band along with Kiss that took the aesthetic of long hair and kind of ran with it, and they did really well. They had many concerts all around the world, and I even owned their first album, Appetite for Destruction. And then there is Adolescence. One of many early punk bands that had pretty basic sounds, pretty basic drum lines, chords, bass solos, and maybe they had bad production quality, but for their time, they were really pushing the boundaries for fast-paced, heavy music. Also have their record as well. And of course, with time, more genres were born and brought into the mainstream, like grunge, grind metal, nu metal, which is known as rap metal, and screamo. But then with those subgenres, you start to enter the more extreme side of metal. Metal that consists of mostly screams or drum blasts or very distorted guitars or basses, that it starts to become like one instrument altogether. Entering the extreme metal path is basically like taking a drug. It is very addictive, and it is very hard to quit in a short amount of time. Remember how I said there was a death metal band? Well, the band that made death metal sound evil and grim and ugly kind of made death metal seem satanic of some kind. That band is called Cannibal Corpse. With the name already pretty being out there, their album covers were also pretty out there as well. Some album covers were even banned in some parts of the world, being how disgusting and gruesome they are. Now, although there are those extreme metal genres, but there also will be the more calm metal bands that just play and just do their own thing for fun and whatnot. And there always will be. And that is pretty much for the metal genres. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.